And welcome back into Mondays in Midtown. Will McKenna here, joined alongside my political panel for this week. We have Max Jordan from the Democrats here at SLU and Amy Lutz from the Republicans here at SLU. All right, guys, we've had some interesting updates here lately on the presidential campaign as we get deeper into this thing. It's already this year, unbelievable that it's flown by, coming up in November. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit. We'll start with you, Amy. What do you like so far that you see from the Republican side here in this, out of the candidates so far for this upcoming presidential election? Or don't like?
Or don't like. What I like, not much, I'll be honest. I'm really confused. My fellow Republicans, I don't know what you're doing with Newt Gingrich. I mean, consistently, I personally am not a huge Mitt Romney fan, but he's the only candidate who has consistently polled at least close to Obama or ahead, whereas Newt Gingrich will lose in a massive landslide, most likely. And I think the problem is that conservatives tend to be taken with his speech. He's great in debates. I mean, he's a brilliant politician. He has a great way of phrasing things that attract conservatives, attract moderates, attract everybody in the party. But when you really look at his record, I mean, he's more liberal than Mitt Romney in a lot of ways. He's been for the healthcare mandate for 20 years, for example. And I think he's probably one of the Democrats' favorite candidates at this point. I think personally the only, maybe social conservative left in the race is Rick Santorum, but again, the winnability factor is there. He won Iowa, as we saw in Iowa, the very close race, but with Newt peaking at this time and Mitt barely holding on, it looks like it's going to be a two-man race from now on.
Now, do you think with Newt being a little bit more leaning towards the liberal side, that makes him more electable going up against President Obama?
I really don't think so. I think in politics right now we kind of have a pendulum where it's swung a little bit to the left, and a lot of Republicans obviously and some independents are looking for it to swing in the other direction. And so again, I think the Tea Party for a long time had been looking for a candidate to settle on in that same vein, and some of them have settled on Newt Gingrich, unfortunately. And I think once the campaign comes out, if Newt Gingrich is the candidate, once Obama and his supporters bring out their attack ads, it's really going to show that he's not as conservative as he appears to be.
Now, Max, being the raging conservative that you are, what do you like so far out of these Republican candidates, and maybe give President Obama a run for his money in this upcoming election?
I mean, pure and simple, every moment this race continues, the President of the United States looks like the adult in the room, period, end of story. I mean, after last night's debate, you're looking like, it seems like in Florida, that Romney's going to probably win by about 9 points on Tuesday in Florida. However, I saw polling today where Speaker Gingrich is well ahead in Arizona and Minnesota. So there's a definite possibility that this could go, hypothetically to the convention. The Speaker is going to win at least 4 or 5 more states, maybe as many as 10, who knows. I mean, there's a debate every 3 days, it seems like. So you got to figure that that's in Speaker Gingrich's favor. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, Gingrich is making Romney trend right. Speaker Gingrich has a personal history that puts most Democrats to shame, especially all of our nominees the past 20 years. So, I mean, you lose the moral argument with him. In the end, it has to be Romney or a player to be named later. I mean, hypothetically, if it gets bloody enough, you could see, a floor fight at the convention, and you could get Mitch Daniels or someone riding a white pony onto the stage. But of course, that's not exactly plausible, but it's certainly still probable. So, that's my perspective from the race right now. I mean, today's Gallup poll, or maybe it was yesterday, had the president up 6 on Romney for the first time in almost 5 months. So, I mean, with economic sales in his back, things are solidifying in a pretty nice way. We'll see jobs report first week of February, and if that's anywhere close to last month's, I feel like you're going to see a lot of firming on the president's side.
Now, Max, as we get deeper into this, I just want a real quick response on this one. President Obama was known for his marketing campaigns that he had coming into the presidential election 4 years ago. Not that he needs to top that, because obviously he's much more well-known. He's the president of the United States than he was when he was running. But what does he do for his marketing campaign to the people of the United States? He went for the change last time. That might be a little worn off now. What does he try to do to propel himself in this election?
That's an excellent question. As you've probably seen over the past 4 or 5 months, and I'm the first one to admit, I feel like the president has road-tested some phrases and some slogans. You got "Win the Future." You had "Pass this bill." I mean, that can't obviously be a campaign slogan. You've seen the iconic Obama photo or multicolored Obama photo with progress underneath. So I mean, there's certainly different ways, and I'm sure as we're speaking in Chicago, they are focus testing some slogans. When you're outraising the Republican field by 5-1, you can do that. So I have no doubt the president's going to have the resources to compete. He's strong out west where he needs to be strong. If the economy improves fractionally over the next 3 to 4 months, Rust Belt states will come back into the fold. So I'm not too desperately worried. In terms of marketing, I mean, you just have to be the adult right now, and then you eventually focus on the person that's going to be on the dais with you come October and November. So, I mean, right now, if I were the president of the United States, I'd be sipping a Mai Tai on the Truman balcony, just watching the debates and hoping that party just tears itself to pieces like it's doing right now. I mean, and frankly, the more Newt Gingrich wins, the more that President Obama is just, he is just the man.
Smiling. Yeah. All right, now to change topics just a little bit here. State of the Union, just this past week. Amy, what did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Did President Obama accomplish what he needed to in that address?
I mean, it's a good question. I think the thing about that speech is it's very similar to just about every other speech he's given. The RNC, I believe, actually came out with a video this week that put together his last 3 speeches, and a lot of the phrases he's using are the same. Like "this is a new start," that kind of thing, "fair share," all of the same catchphrases. And I know, it's the State of the Union, you're going to use a lot of catchphrases, but I think it probably was certainly well loved by his Democratic counterparts, but again, pretty well despised by Republicans. On the positive side, there were a couple, things that I liked. I think we could all agree that the entrance, the embrace with Gabrielle Giffords was very touching. I think it was a great way to open. And I do appreciate that he opened with some commentary about the military. I think that was very strong. But other than that, it was a typical President Obama speech. One of the things that I particularly had a problem with was when he talked about the car bailouts. He mentioned how, some, probably alluding to people on the right, wanted the automobile industry to die to completely get out of the way without a bailout, which in actuality is not true. A lot of people on the right were looking for bankruptcy, so they'd have time to pay their debts and start over again. And he didn't even mention the fact that Ford, that did not take a bailout, in fact is actually thriving and doing pretty well. So again, I think it was a typical Obama speech. I actually only was able to watch half of it. I realized that it was online, which is one of the greatest progresses of modern technology, and I ended up reading the rest of it. So, I'm obviously not hugely impressed, but I'm not surprised, I have to say.
Max, did it represent the Democratic Party well?
It was a very effective speech. I enjoyed it. If you ask me, of course, I'm going to tell you that President Obama, amongst this generation, is pretty peerless when it comes to rhetoric. So I think he's a very effective communicator on a large stage. On a personal note, was it my favorite President Obama speech ever? Probably not. Certainly the highlight that will always stick with me was the 15 minutes in Grant Park when he got elected, when he kind of, ran down the historical narrative of how the country came to the conclusion it did that evening. But I feel like it was exactly what he wanted it to be, which would be a postscript on the speech he gave in Kansas, I think over a month ago, where he kind of framed the economic populist debate or message that the party will push forward in this election cycle. So I think he firmly accomplished that. The most tweeted about line I read today was the spilled milk joke. And the president can sing, but I don't think he can do jokes very well. So, c'est la vie. But and I thought it was an excellent speech. He communicated to the American people what he had done, and he took advantage of the opportunity, to set himself up for the next 5 to 6 months. So I think, from a political perspective, you can't fault the man, and I think he did an excellent job. And will he be remembered for this final State of the Union? When it's all said and done, probably not. But does it fit within the pantheon of his other speeches? And I think it most certainly does.
All right, well, let's go ahead and finish up with our last couple minutes about what President Obama had to say about fixing the economy, obviously with his incentives for domestic manufacturing and also how he wants to reform tax codes. Amy, any thoughts or opinions on what he had to say about fixing the economy?
Yeah, I mean, as far as fixing the tax codes, I'll be honest, I am so sick of hearing about the Buffett rule. I heard that his secretary actually was there, to my knowledge, in the
audience. She sat at the president's table, I believe.
She was, yeah.
In the audience. Again, I think it's a form of class warfare. I'm not a fan of progressive tax systems. Personally, I'm more of a fan of a flat tax. I don't believe in shifting the weight primarily to the wealthy. I think that it's important to remember that about 50% of people in this country don't even pay income taxes. And so if you want someone to pay their fair share, I mean, that's where it's got to go. So I obviously, as a conservative, as a Republican, I'm not in support of his tax code, and I wish it was much more on a smaller government flat tax scale.
Max?
I mean, all of the president's rhetoric about manufacturing job increases, I think, is well taken. I feel like that, if something's going to pull us out of this slump, if you will, it has to be probably, large-scale industrial manufacturing. And the sector is kicked up noticeably in the past couple months. There are plenty of metrics that show that manufacturing capacity is increasing, durable goods orders are up. So I feel like the president has to hammer home that point because it's the area that's showing the most improvement, and it's politically expedient. And I would do the exact same thing. In terms of tax code, I mean, you'll find a lot of people in my party willing to compromise on tax code. I mean, I'm not the only Democrat on earth that thinks that we should, create a couple new brackets. I mean, if you want to increase government revenue and talk about equitability, of course, I feel like the Buffett rule, of course, as a political tactic is very good, but it also is, a noticeable point. If you read any qualitative studies over the past 20 years, you will notice that income inequality has grown in this country by at least 25 to 30%. Period, end of story. Those are the facts. The wealth for the richest 1% in this country has increased almost 1,000%. It's, it's something that mainstream America is going to notice. So thus, it's something that the political parties in this country have to discuss. Now, do I think that, we should, rob the rich to give to the poor? I mean, wealth redistribution to me has always been kind of, a nonsensical phrase. It's never been about that. Elizabeth Warren said that, no one gets rich in this country on their own, and that's absolutely correct. And I don't know why we can't embody that in a tax code that's responsible, that's fair, and that, asks people that have everything, and people that, and asks people that have, nothing to almost nothing, to come to the table and agree about what's best for this country. And that's my perspective on the tax code. And it's something that can be done. It's something that is a prime and ripe area for compromise. And, President Reagan did it. President Clinton did it. And I don't know why President Obama can't do it. And I think that there's going to be a groundswell of support for it eventually. And I think it'd be probably the mainstream highlight of a second Obama term. I think it'd be the first thing he takes up. Either that or the DREAM Act. So, I mean, that's kind of what you're looking at as a precursor, or I guess a prologue to an Obama second term. So.
All right, well, I got one final question to finish up with. There's this little thing coming up called the Super Bowl in a week from this weekend. Amy, who you got? New England, New York, rematch of 2008. What you got?
First off, I'm not a huge fan of the game in general.
Neither am I.
But
I will second that.
I would have loved to see my Saints make it in the game. Unfortunately, they did not.
Course.
So I'm going to have to go with the Giants on this one. I actually think that Eli is the better Manning, especially now with Peyton in somewhere in Europe or wherever he ended up getting that surgery. I think he's back in the States now, obviously. I know the Patriots are a great team. It's going to be difficult to beat them, but I'd love to see the Giants pull it out again, actually.
Score line?
It's going to be close, 27-24.
Oh.
That's good
I'm going to be, yeah,
That's
I think it'll be high scoring.
All right, Max, what we got?
I probably got the Giants. I think they're on the hot streak, and I feel like New England is not the team it was 3 or 4 years ago. I think that it's kind of what Indianapolis was when it went to the Super Bowl, kind of a team of best fit players that are kind of almost at their expiration date. So, I have to pick New York because they're the hungry team.
Wait, you're telling me Chad Ochocinco isn't in his prime anymore?
I think the person that carries that team is Tom Golden Boy Brady. So, I mean, come on.
He's got a supermodel wife, too.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's a lucky man. I don't fault him for that. But
Got his hair, too.
he most certainly does. I think that it's going to be, I would probably go 21-17, New York.
All right.
Okay.
I like those picks. I'm going to go
Yeah.
New England just to be different, and it's going to be 17-10. All-star game this weekend. Cam Newton out. No, Cam Newton in. Eli Manning out. There you go, your boy. He's not playing the All-Star game. He's not a fan favorite. All right, thank you, Amy. Thank you, Max, for joining us on this political panel. And that's it.